The old alien vault was cold and silent. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. It had been locked for generations, guarded only by stories and warnings. The alien girl named Liara loved exploring the forgotten rooms of her family estate. She was young, curious, and often reckless. To her, the old warnings were nothing but boring tales told by elders. On that evening, she brought someone with her, not another alien, but a human. His name was Daniel, a janitor who worked in the colony. Humans were rare in this sector of the galaxy. Most aliens looked down on them, but Daniel was different. He was quiet, hardworking, and always ready to help others. That made him a friend to Liara. Liara laughed as she opened the rusty vault door. Inside, a heavy set of ancient armor rested on a pedestal. The armor was dark silver, covered in strange markings that glowed faintly. It looked too big and too heavy for anyone to wear. She grinned at Daniel and said, "Come on, human. Try it on. Let's see if you can even lift it." Daniel shook his head. "That's not a good idea. It looks important, maybe we shouldn't touch it." But Liara teased him again. "What are you afraid of? It's just old metal. My ancestors used it in wars long before you humans even left your home planet. I bet you can't even move it." The challenge burned in Daniel's mind. He didn't like being mocked, especially when it came from someone. He trusted. With a sigh, he stepped forward. His hands brushed the cold surface of the armor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to everyone's shock, the armor responded. The silver chest plate lifted itself as if it weighed nothing at all. The markings glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Daniel stumbled back, but the armor moved with him, wrapping around his body, piece by piece. The helmet slid over his head. The gauntlets locked onto his hands and the boots sealed tight. Liara's laughter stopped instantly. Her golden eyes widened in disbelief. "No, that's impossible," she whispered. She tried to pull the gauntlet off Daniel's arm, but the armor clung to him like it was alive. A strange hum filled the vault. Ancient symbols appeared in the air, spinning around him like fireflies. Daniel gasped as energy rushed through his body. It was not just strength, it was something deeper. He felt as if the armor was searching his mind, testing him, whispering to him in a language he did not know. His vision blurred, and he saw flashes of ancient battles. Alien warriors standing against monstrous enemies, rivers of fire, screams, and victory cries. Liara backed away, fear creeping into her chest. This was no joke anymore. Her people believed that only the chosen bloodline could wear the ancestral armor, but Daniel was not of her blood, not even of her species. Yet the armor had accepted him. The vault door shook as the glowing symbols spread outward. Elders from nearby chambers rushed in. Their wrinkled faces turned pale at the sight. One of them shouted, "Stop him, remove the armor before it's too late." But no one could move closer. The air crackled with energy, pushing everyone back. Daniel collapsed to his knees. The armor still glowed, but his breathing was heavy. He looked at Liara with confusion and fear. "What's happening to me?" he asked. His voice echoed strangely, amplified by the helmet. Liara didn't answer. She didn't know what to say. She had started this as a harmless joke, but now the joke had awakened something her people had feared for centuries. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "You were never supposed to wear it, but it chose you." The elders exchanged nervous glances. Some whispered about old prophecies. Others muttered that this was a sign of doom. But none dared to step forward. None dared to touch the human who now carried the armor of their ancestors. In that moment, Daniel realized life would never be the same. He had only agreed to humor a friend's joke, but now the galaxy itself might change because of it. And as the vault trembled with ancient power, one truth became clear. What had started as laughter would end in something far more dangerous. The vault was silent now, its walls pulsing with energy. Daniel's heart raced as he struggled to breathe. His fingers were numb, his body heavy, but his mind was awake, sharper than ever. He could feel the armor, feel it in his bones like it was part of him. He tried to move, but the suit seemed to move with him, as if it had a mind of its own. "Liara!" Daniel gasped, his voice muffled by the helmet. "What is this? What's happening?" His mind was clouded with flashes. Images of war, of battles fought long before his time. There were faces, faces of beings who were both beautiful and terrifying, their eyes filled with ancient wisdom and pain, as if they were calling to him from beyond the stars. Liara stepped forward, her hands shaking. I don't know, Daniel, she whispered, her voice trembling. This shouldn't be possible. You're wearing the armor of the ancients. It's a sacred relic, meant only for my people, not for humans, not for anyone else. Daniel tried to lift his hands, but the gauntlets tightened around his wrists. He could feel power surging through him, unfamiliar and raw. His legs felt like they could run for miles without stopping. His heart beat faster, matching the rhythm of the armor's pulsing glow. But even as his body surged with strength, something in his chest twisted with fear. The armor. It's alive, Daniel whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Liara nodded, her gaze locked on him. Yes, it's an ancient power, a power that chooses its bearer. It was never meant to bond with someone like you, but now that it has, it will never leave. She paused, her eyes full of sorrow. You're part of something now, something bigger than both of us. Daniel's mind reeled as she spoke. I didn't ask for this, Liara. I never wanted this. His voice cracked, the weight of the situation finally settling in. But as he tried to speak, he felt a presence in his mind, a voice, a whisper coming from deep within the armor. You are the chosen one, it said, its voice deep, echoing like 1,000 voices. His breath caught in his throat. He didn't know where the voice came from, but it was clear. It was the armor speaking to him. No, Daniel muttered, shaking his head. This isn't happening. I'm not the chosen one. I'm just a janitor. I'm nobody. The whisper grew louder. You are the one who will awaken us. You are the one who will lead. You will fight, and you will win. For the ancestors will guide you. Liara watched, her eyes wide with growing horror. The armor seemed to grow stronger, its energy radiating from Daniel like a beacon. Daniel, she said softly, you're not alone in this, but you must understand. There are forces that will come after you, forces that won't stop until they claim the armor for themselves. Who are they? Daniel asked, his voice steadying, though his body still shook. He had no choice but to accept the truth. The armor had chosen him, and now he had to figure out why. Liara hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. The enemies of my people. Those who want to control the power of the ancestors. They will stop at nothing, and they will come for you for the armor. They believe it can give them dominion over the galaxy. If they succeed. She didn't finish, her face pale as she looked at the now glowing armor. The door to the vault creaked and both of them turned. The elders had arrived, their robes flowing with authority, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and disbelief. One of them, a tall alien with long silver hair, stepped forward, his voice deep and commanding. Remove the human from the armor now. But the moment he spoke, Daniel felt the armor respond. A surge of energy pulsed from his chest. The air crackled with power. The armor glowed brighter, brighter than any star. It flared up with such intensity that the elders were forced to step back. At no one can remove it, Daniel said, his voice firm, stronger than it had ever been. It's part of me now, and it won't let go. The elder's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the room was filled with tension. Then another elder spoke, his voice softer. The armor must not remain with him. It's too dangerous. He does not understand its full power. He is a human. He is not worthy. Liara stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. It's not his fault. The armor has chosen him. The power is in him, whether we like it or not. We must find a way to control it, or we risk losing everything. Daniel clenched his fists, the armor reacting. To his anger, the symbols on the chestplate shifted, turning into ancient runes. He could feel the power growing inside him, but also a warning, a pull, something dark and dangerous. He didn't know if he could control it, but he had no choice. Now the armor was part of him, and there was no going back. The walls of the vault hummed with the power radiating from Daniel's armor. The air itself seemed to ripple as the ancient symbols swirled around him. It felt like something was watching him, waiting. Liara stood at his side, her eyes filled with a mixture of awe and fear. She had never seen anything like this before. The elders, still frozen in shock, exchanged nervous glances. Their ancient minds struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The human, the outsider, was wearing the sacred armor of the ancients. The armor had not chosen a human. It was impossible. It was unheard of. But the armor had chosen him, and they could not ignore it. Who are you? One of the elders finally spoke, his voice quivering. What power do you possess now? Daniel tried to steady himself, but the weight of the situation bore down on him. His heart raced, and his palms sweated beneath the gauntlets. I don't. No, he said, his voice hoarse. I don't understand any of this. I'm not some warrior. I'm just a janitor. This was a joke, a stupid joke. Liara stepped forward, her eyes locked on the elders. It's not a joke anymore. She said softly, we have no time for questions. This armor is not just a relic, it is a key to something the galaxy has forgotten. And now the enemies of my people will stop at nothing to get it. Daniel's mind raced. His body felt as if it were running a marathon, but his feet never moved. The power from the armor flowed through him like an endless river. He could hear faint whispers in his mind, ancient voices calling him to action. But there was something else, something darker, a presence lurking just beyond his reach. Enemies? Daniel repeated. What, enemies? Liara's face darkened. The ones who seek control of the ancients' power, they are not just aliens, they are something much worse. They've been hunting for this armor for centuries, and now that it has been awakened. Her voice trailed off as she glanced at the door. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway outside the vault. Heavy, deliberate steps. The air grew cold, and the elders tensed, one of them whispering, They are here. They've found us. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as the doors to the vault groaned open. The light in the room flickered, and a group of figures stepped inside, their bodies tall and thin, their faces hidden beneath dark hoods. The shadows they cast seemed to stretch and grow as if they were part of the darkness itself. One of them stepped forward, and Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The figure's voice was deep and smooth, like the hum of a distant thunderstorm. So the prophecy is true, it said. The armor has chosen its bearer, and we will take it back. Liara's eyes widened with recognition. No, you... But the figure raised a hand, silencing her. Do not try to stop us, girl, it said, its voice colder than the void of space. This armor belongs to the dominion of the fallen stars. It is not yours to protect. We have waited long enough. We will take what is ours. Daniel's mind spun. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he couldn't move. Not with the armor binding him, the presence in his mind stirred again, dark and ancient, urging him to act. Liara, who are these people? He asked, his voice low. They are the Dominion, Liara whispered, her voice barely audible. The ones who abandoned the old ways. They believe that the armor will grant them eternal power. They are ruthless. They will stop at nothing to claim it. Daniel gripped the sides of the armor, trying to steady himself. He could feel the power surging inside him, but it wasn't just power. There was something else, a deep hunger. Like the armor was calling for blood, for battle. He had to control it. He had to stay in control. The leader of the Dominion stepped closer, his eyes glowing with a faint red light. You are nothing but a tool, human, he said. A pawn in the game of gods. You will hand over the armor, or we will take it from you. The choice is yours. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He felt the energy inside him grow, but it was not just the armor that pulsed. It was the anger, the fear, the power it had awakened within him. He had to stop this, but he didn't know how. I'm not giving it to you, Daniel said, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and defiance. The Dominion leader smiled. Then you will die with it. With a sudden movement, The Dominion leader raised his hand and dark energy surged toward Daniel. The air crackled and the ground beneath his feet trembled. The armor responded to the threat, glowing brighter, its ancient runes shifting. Daniel felt the energy pulse, through him. And then, a blinding light erupted from the armor, slamming into the Dominion leader. The force of it sent him flying back, crashing into the wall. The room went silent, save for the sound of Daniel's heavy breathing. What did I do? Daniel gasped, his body trembling as he tried to process what had just happened. The Dominion members stood in shock, staring at their fallen leader. Liara approached him slowly, her eyes wide. You tapped into the armor's power, But Daniel wasn't listening. His mind was racing. Something had shifted. The armor was more than just protection. It was a weapon, a force of destruction. And now, Daniel had unleashed it. The Dominion had come for the armor. But they hadn't expected the power they were about to face, and neither had Daniel. Daniel's chest heaved as he stared at the chaos around him. His heart raced, the power coursing through him. Was it the armor? Was it his own fear? The room still hummed with the strange energy, and the fallen figure of the Dominion leader lay against the wall, motionless. Liara stepped forward, her face a mix of awe and disbelief. You did it, Daniel, she whispered. The armor responded to you. It's like you've become its true master. Daniel's hands trembled as he looked down at them. The gauntlets of the armor seemed to pulse with a life of their own. He could feel the raw power inside him, yet it terrified him. His fingers curled into fists and the ground beneath him cracked, sending tremors through the room. I don't want this, Daniel muttered, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't ask for this. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice gentle. I know, but the armor has chosen you. You are now part of something greater, and that means you'll face the trials that come with it. The trials? Daniel asked, his voice thick with confusion. What do you mean, trials? Liara stepped back, her eyes dark with concern. The armor does not give power freely, Daniel. It demands something in return. Those who wear it must prove themselves worthy. They must survive the trials, the tests of the ancients. Only then will you truly control the power it gives. Daniel's heart sank. He had already felt the overwhelming force inside him. But now the idea of trials, of tests, it sounded like something out of a nightmare. I'm not a warrior, Liara. I don't know how to fight. I can't. You won't be fighting just for power, she interrupted, her tone serious. The trials are not just about strength. They are about the heart, the mind, and the soul. The armor will test everything about you. It will challenge your fears, your weaknesses, and your choices. And it will not be easy. Before Daniel could respond, the air in the vault shifted. A low rumble echoed through the stone walls. The ground trembled beneath them and a massive crack opened up beneath their feet. Daniel stumbled, barely catching himself on the pedestal where the armor had first been displayed. From the depths of the crack, a dark mist began to rise, swirling and coiling like a living thing. Liara stepped back, her face pale. The trial has begun, she whispered. This is the first test. You must face it or you'll be consumed. The mist thickened, turning a deep shade of violet. The air grew colder and Daniel felt the first stirrings of panic. He wanted to run, to escape, but the armor held him in place. He could feel it tightening, almost like it was guiding him forward, forcing him to face whatever was coming. Then, from the mist, shapes began to form. Dark figures, humanoid in shape, but distorted. Their faces twisted in agony, their eyes hollow, empty. They moved towards Daniel, their steps slow but deliberate. Their hands reached for him, their fingers clawing at the air. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. His body froze. The armor pulsed with energy, as if urging him to act. He felt his breath catch in his throat, the fear rising in him like a wave. He didn't know how to fight these creatures. How could he fight something that wasn't even real? Suddenly, the voice of the armor spoke in his mind again. Face your fear, Daniel. You cannot run from it. You must overcome it. Daniel's eyes widened. He wanted to protest, to scream, but he couldn't. The figures were getting closer, their empty eyes boring into him. And in that moment he realized, these creatures were not just monsters. They were his fears, his insecurities, his doubts given form. The first figure lunged at him, its arms reaching for his throat, but Daniel was faster. A surge of energy blasted from the armor, and the creature was thrown back, crashing into the wall. The mist recoiled as the creature disintegrated into nothingness. Did I do that? Daniel gasped, his hands still shaking. He could feel the power inside him more than ever. But it scared him. What had just happened? Liara watched from a distance, her face a mix of fear and admiration. You did it, Daniel. The armor's power is responding to your will. You've just passed the first trial. But Daniel wasn't sure what to feel. The fear hadn't gone away. It was still there, lurking in the shadows of his mind. The mist had cleared, but the trial was far from over. Another figure emerged from the mist. This one. Even darker, its form shifting like a shadow, and as it stepped forward it whispered, "You will fail, just like before." Daniel froze. The voice echoed in his mind. The words it spoke were like a knife to his heart. They were his own thoughts, his own doubts. He had failed so many times before, he had always been afraid, always second-guessing himself. But the armor hummed, a soft, steady pulse in his chest, urging him to push forward. You must conquer the doubt. The armor's voice said, "You are not defined by your past, you are the master of your own future." With a roar, Daniel pushed the fear aside. He summoned all the power of the armor, and with a single powerful motion he slammed his fist into the shadowy figure. The figure shrieked as it disintegrated, vanishing into the mist. The ground beneath him shook and the mist began to fade. The vault grew quiet, the energy in the room dissipating, and for the first time, Daniel felt a small sense of peace. He had faced his fears, he had fought against the darkest parts of himself, and he had won. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The trials would only get harder from here. Liara stepped forward, her eyes filled with a new respect. You passed the first trial, Daniel. But there are many more to come. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore, you're fighting for the future of all our people. Daniel nodded, his heart still pounding. He knew the trials had only just begun, but now he was ready to face whatever came next. The days following Daniel's first trial were filled with uncertainty. The air in the vault still hummed with the power of the armor, but Daniel was beginning to understand that with great power came a terrifying weight. He could feel the weight of the armor, not just on his body, but on his soul. The voices in his head, whispers from the past, echoed in his mind, urging him to use the power, urging him to act. He had passed the first trial, but the trials were far from over. Each day brought a new test, and every test brought new doubts. Was he truly worthy of the armor? Or was he just a pawn in some ancient game? Daniel's thoughts were interrupted by a loud crash. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the sound of screeching metal filled the air. He looked up, his heart racing, and saw Liara running towards him, her face pale with fear. "Daniel!" she shouted. "They're here!" Before he could respond, the door to the vault burst open and a group of soldiers stormed in. Their faces were covered by dark masks, their bodies clad in black armor that reflected the light of the glowing vault. They moved quickly, their weapons raised, their eyes cold and unfeeling. "Protect the armor," one of the soldiers barked, and the others spread out, securing the room. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The Dominion, the very enemies Liara had warned him about, had arrived, and they were here for the armor. He could feel the power inside, him surging, ready to be unleashed. The armor responded to his fear, to his anger, but Daniel held back. He wasn't sure if he was ready for another trial, another fight. But as the soldiers moved closer, their weapons aimed at him, he knew he had no choice. Liara stood beside him, her eyes fierce with determination. "They won't take it, Daniel. We can't let them." Without a word, Daniel stepped forward, the armor shifting, its ancient runes glowing brighter with every step. He raised his hands, his fingers trembling, and for the first time he didn't hesitate. A blast of energy shot from his palms, knocking the soldiers back. The force of the blast sent them crashing into the walls, their weapons flying from their hands. "Move! Now!" Liara shouted, grabbing Daniel's arm and pulling him toward the exit. The vault doors slammed shut behind them, but the soldiers were already regrouping. "They'll be back with reinforcements. We need to get out of here." Daniel's mind raced, his heart pounded, but the armor kept him calm, focused. It guided him, a steady presence in his chest, pushing him forward. They ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Liara glanced over her shoulder, her eyes wide with fear. "We don't have much time. They've already sent word to the rest of the Dominion. The invasion has begun." "The invasion?" Daniel echoed. "What do you mean? The Dominion is attacking?" Liara nodded, her face grim. "Yes. The Dominion is not just here for the armor. They want to conquer this world, to claim everything we've built. They've been waiting for the right moment, and now they have it. With the armor awakened, they believe they can control the galaxy. We cannot let that happen." Daniel's mind raced. The weight of his responsibility was heavier than ever. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for Liara, for her people, for the entire galaxy. And the armor, the power that had chosen him, was his only hope. But it was still so new, so unpredictable. They reached the outer edge of the vault where the hangar bay stretched out before them. The sky above was dark, filled with the shadows of ships descending from the heavens. They were here in full force. Liara's eyes scanned the skies, and then she turned to Daniel. "We need to stop them now." Before Daniel could answer, a loud explosion rocked the ground beneath them. The entire hangar shook, and debris rained down from above. "They're launching their attack," Liara said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Daniel clenched his fists. The armor responded to his anger, surging with energy. He could feel it, feel the raw power ready to explode from him, but he had to control it. He had to think. A small fleet of Dominion ships hovered above, their engines roaring. The sky was alive with the sound of destruction. As they descended, the ships fired down on the planet below, sending blasts of energy into the streets, the buildings, and the people. Liara gripped Daniel's arm, her voice urgent. "We have to stop the ships before they destroy everything. You have the power, Daniel. You have to control it. You're the only one who can fight back." Daniel hesitated for a moment, doubt creeping into his mind. But then he remembered the trials. He remembered the whispers, the voice of the armor urging him to face his fears. He wasn't ready, but the galaxy didn't have time for him to be ready. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, raising his hands to the sky. The armor reacted, glowing brighter, pulsating with energy. Daniel felt the power surge within him, his body trembling as he channeled everything he had into one final push. The air around him crackled with energy, and with a roar he released it. A massive wave of force shot from his palms, streaking across the sky like lightning. The Dominion ships were caught off guard, their shields unable to withstand the blast. One by one they exploded, falling from the sky in fiery destruction. Daniel's breath came in heavy gasps. His body felt drained, but the armor's power was still inside him, ready to fight, ready to defend. But as the last ship fell, Daniel heard a voice in his mind, a whisper, dark and dangerous. "This is only the beginning. You cannot run from what you have unleashed." The invasion had begun, but this was only the first wave, and Daniel knew in his heart, the battle was far from over. The aftermath of the Dominion's invasion was a storm of destruction. Daniel's body ached with the strain of using the armor's power, but the battle was far from over. The sky above them was filled with the smoke of burning ships and falling debris. The earth beneath their feet trembled as explosions echoed in the distance. But Daniel felt something else too. A deep, gnawing sense of dread. Liara stood beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot, and the Dominion was just getting started. "We've bought ourselves some time," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "But we need to act fast. The Dominion forces will regroup. They have weapons more powerful than anything we've faced before. We can't let them take the city." Daniel looked out over the burning landscape, his chest tight. He knew they couldn't keep running. They had to fight. The armor on his body pulsed with energy, still raw and untested. But Daniel didn't know if he could harness it fully, not without risking everything. Liara, I can barely control this power, Daniel said, his voice filled with frustration. I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. What if I make it worse? Liara turned to him, her expression softening. You're not alone, Daniel. You have the armor's power, yes, but you also have the people around you. We will fight this together. You just have to trust yourself. Daniel hesitated, but the weight of the situation was clear. He was their last hope. The armor had chosen him for a reason, and he couldn't afford to fail now. All right, he said, his voice filled with determination. Let's end this. The sound of distant gunfire reached their ears, and the ground began to shake once more. Dominion forces were closing in. Their ground troops, heavily armored and armed with energy cannons, began to advance through the city. The streets were in chaos, with civilians running for cover, buildings crumbling, and the air filled with the stench of smoke and burning metal. We need to take them out before they reach the heart of the city, Liara said. There's an armory up ahead. If we can secure it, we can arm the civilians and fight back. But we'll have to get past the main force first. Daniel nodded, his fingers tightening around the gauntlets of the armor. His mind raced, the pressure of the moment pushing him to make a decision. He couldn't do this alone. He had to lead. He had to push through the doubt and the fear. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the ground, sending debris flying in every direction. The sound of metal scraping against stone filled the air as a massive Dominion tank appeared on the horizon, its massive cannons aimed directly at their position. Daniel's heart skipped a beat, his pulse quickened, and the armor responded instantly. The runes, glowing brighter as energy built up around him, he had no choice but to fight. He raised his arms, the armor's energy flowing through his veins, but just as he was about to release the blast, Liara grabbed his arm. "Daniel, wait!" she shouted, her eyes wide with panic. "That tank is reinforced with anti-energy shields. You won't be able to break through it with raw power. We need to be smarter than that." Daniel looked at her, his breathing heavy. "Then what do we do?" Liara's eyes scanned the area, her mind working quickly. "There's a weak spot in its armor, a gap where the shields can't reach. If we can get close enough, I can plant a charge there, but we'll need to distract it first." Daniel nodded, understanding the plan. They needed to take out the tank, or the rest of the city wouldn't stand a chance. "I'll create the distraction," he said. "You get the charge planted, I'll cover you." Without waiting for her response, Daniel moved. The armor's power surged, and with a burst of energy he launched himself toward the tank. His legs moved faster than they ever had before, the air snapping with the force of his speed. The tank's cannons fired, but Daniel was already moving, darting between the explosions with inhuman agility. The armor seemed to guide his every move, each step in sync with his thoughts. He could feel the energy building up inside him. His heart raced as he closed the distance to the tank. He reached out and slammed his fists into the ground, sending shock waves through the earth. The force of it knocked several Dominion soldiers off their feet, but Daniel didn't stop. He ran toward the tank's side, where the armor was weakest. The energy in his body surged, ready to explode. From the corner of his eye, he saw Liara slip behind the tank, her movements swift and precise. She was planting the charge, but just as she finished, the tank turned its cannon toward her. "No," Daniel shouted. His hands raised and the energy within him exploded outward. A beam of pure force shot from his palms, hitting the tank's cannon and blasting it to pieces. The shockwave sent him flying backward, but he landed on his feet. Barely keeping his balance, Liara dove to the side as the tank's cannon exploded, sending shrapnel flying. The blast left a deafening roar in the air, but Daniel didn't wait to see the result. He turned and ran toward Liara, his heart pounding. "Did you plant it?" Daniel asked, his voice breathless. Liara nodded, a determined look on her face. "It's done," she said. "Let's move now." The two of them turned and sprinted toward the nearest cover as the tank began to crumble. The charge detonated in a brilliant explosion, sending the remains of the tank scattering in all directions. The Dominion soldiers screamed in surprise as they were caught in the blast. But there was no time to celebrate. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The invasion was still in full force, and the Dominion would not stop until they had control. But for the first time since this all began, Daniel felt something other than fear. He felt hope. He wasn't alone. The armor had chosen him, yes, but it was his choice to fight. And as long as he had the will to keep going, he could face whatever came next. The city was a battlefield, its once beautiful streets now lined with the wreckage of war. Fires burned in the distance, and the sky above was choked with smoke. Dominion forces had scattered through the ruins, pushing toward the heart of the city with relentless force. Daniel could feel the weight of their invasion pressing down on him. But it wasn't just the enemy he was fighting anymore. It was his own doubts. The power of the armor surged within him, the ancient energy coursing through his veins like a second heartbeat. Every time Daniel moved, the armor responded, guiding him, pushing him forward. But with every step, he felt the armor's power calling to something deeper inside him, something dangerous. He stood on the edge of the city now, his eyes focused on the horizon where the Dominion's main force had gathered. The armored ships hovered above, their dark silhouettes casting shadows over the streets. Their energy shields were nearly impenetrable, and their weapons were unlike anything he had ever seen. But Daniel didn't have a choice. He couldn't turn back. He had to face them. Liara was beside him, her face grim as she surveyed the battlefield. "We don't have much time," she said. "They're ready to strike at the heart of our defenses. If we don't stop them now, we'll lose everything. Your power might be our last chance, Daniel. You have to be ready." Daniel nodded, though. The weight of her words sank deep into his chest. He wasn't sure if he was ready. He hadn't asked for any of this. He had never wanted to be the one to save the galaxy. He had only wanted to be left alone. But now, he was their protector, and they were depending on him. The armor had chosen him, and he had to prove that it hadn't made a mistake. Liara turned to face him, her voice softer now. "Daniel, listen to me. The armor didn't just choose anyone, it chose you for a reason. You have what it takes to lead, but you can't let the power control you. You need to control it." Daniel looked down at his hands, the gauntlets glowing softly. He could feel the power thrumming inside him, the same power that had brought destruction to the Dominion's forces. He had used it without thinking, letting the armor's power guide him. But now, he knew he had to be in control. "I'm scared," Daniel admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "What if I fail? What if the power is too much for me?" Liara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You won't fail, Daniel. You've already proven that you're worthy, but you need to believe in yourself, in your own strength, not just the armor." For a moment, everything went quiet. The distant sounds of battle seemed to fade away, and all Daniel could hear was the thrum of his heartbeat. It was then that he realized something. The armor wasn't just a tool. It wasn't just a weapon or a shield. It was a part of him, a reflection of his own strength. He didn't have to fight alone. The armor would be his ally. But it would only work if he embraced it fully. He had to accept the power within him, trust it, and guide it with newfound resolve. Daniel turned to face the city once more. He could see the Dominion's ships descending, their dark forms like vultures circling a dying world. "Let's end this," he said, his voice steady. Liara nodded, and together, they moved toward the heart of the battlefield, where the final confrontation awaited. The Dominion soldiers had set up a defensive perimeter around their command center, energy shields pulsing with a deadly hum. But Daniel wasn't afraid. He knew what he had to do. The armor responded to his will, its power thrumming with anticipation. He raised his hands, and the air around him crackled with energy. For the first time, Daniel felt completely in control. He wasn't just using the armor's power. He was directing it, guiding it like a conductor with an orchestra. The runes on the armor blazed with light as he focused on the Dominion forces. With a single motion, Daniel unleashed a wave of energy, a force so powerful that it sent shockwaves. Through the ground, the Dominion soldiers were thrown off their feet, their shields buckling under the pressure. The armor hummed with satisfaction. But Daniel didn't stop. He pushed forward, calling the energy to him. He could feel the Dominion's resistance, their counterattacks, but nothing could stop him. Not now. Not when he had come this far. Liara's voice broke through the chaos. Daniel, look. He turned to see the Dominion's command ship hovering above, its massive weapons aimed at the city's central power grid. A direct hit would cripple their defenses and leave the city vulnerable. Daniel's heart raced as he realized the danger. He had to act fast. With a shout, he focused all his power into one final blast, a beam of energy so intense that it cut through the sky like lightning. The blast collided with the command ship, shattering its shields and tearing through its hull. The ship exploded in a burst of fire and debris, and the Dominion forces fell into chaos, their remaining ships retreating in disarray. But Daniel didn't celebrate. He knew the battle wasn't truly over. As the dust settled, Daniel stood alone in the heart of the battlefield, his body trembling with exhaustion, but his heart full of a strange sense of peace. The armor was still with him, its power still. Thrumming beneath his skin, Liara approached him, her eyes filled with respect. You did it, Daniel. You are the true bearer. Daniel looked down at the armor, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't do it alone, Liara. It wasn't just the armor. It was everyone who fought with me, everyone who believed in me. That's what made the difference. For the first time since he had put on the armor, Daniel felt a deep sense of peace. He wasn't just the bearer of the Ancients' power, he was the protector of the people, the leader they had always needed. And together, they would rebuild,